Hi, I'm Lanny,
And I'm Winnie.
and this is
Help Me, I'm Bored.
This first episode ever is a deep dive, and we're gonna cover cults. A singular cult, in fact, one that I have a little bit of inside information about from a friend who was in it. So,
Dun dun.
Just
Just
plus
drama.
so that you don't have to watch it. I watched the documentary for like 6 to 8 hours of Shiny Happy People, which is mostly about the Duggar family, but a lot of people don't know like how many families were actually involved, which is a lot, and across several states. And I did my research. I not only watched the thing, and I have, basically interviewed people who were in it and got their perspective of what it was like as like kids and teenagers and young adults, but I also tried to like connect the dots to some things that people might not know about, basically like fraud and child molesting, trigger warning,
And general craziness.
general child abuse,
General child abuse, general craziness. The usual for an Oklahoma cult.
general child abuse. Oklahoma.
Oh my god, general child abuse.
General child
Here
abuse.
to chime in.
Oklahoma, Texas. They were in Mexico at some point I'm assuming to hide from the law. That is a guess. I don't actually know. But supposedly they worked for the cartel while they were down there, which is very Christian, I would say.
Oh yeah, that really follows the whole
ultra Christian, pre-weed being legal, by the way.
Oh boy.
And I'm pretty sure they were weed farming, as far as I've been told. So that's fun. I won't go into too many. Somebody thought we were saying General Tso.
The sauce?
No, not General Tso's chicken, in fact. Anyways, so I'm gonna fill Winnie in on some deep dive stuff because she hasn't seen the documentary.
No, I have not.
And
at least if I have, I don't remember it.
Probably not. It's on Amazon Prime if you wish to watch it yourself. I would say it's good. Like, if you're interested in learning, probably the second half of it is more heavy in the child abuse department. If you're like triggered by that kind of stuff and you don't want to watch all of it,
you want to like healthily avoid it.
Yeah, the first half of the documentary is very like, this is what the family was like and this is what they were doing and here's why everybody thought they were great, which is part of the reason I chose that as the topic for the podcast, is because number one, sort of like looking into this thing has kind of gone away, and I think that it's because people think that it's gone. It's not. If you Google it, it's IBLP, and there's also another acronym for the homeschooling part of it, and that's still there. Not only are they still selling the books that the dude wrote, who's a convicted child molester,
yikes,
they also are still doing the homeschooling curriculum and another curriculum, which I'll talk about later.
Like the same that the Duggars did?
All of it is the same, yeah.
Ooh. And that was publicized.
They basically divorced themselves from Bill Gothard. That's the guy who created the group in 1961. Basically, he called it something else at first. It was like IBYC or ESOC. This dude loved him some acronyms. You're going to hear so many freaking acronyms. It's not funny. It's not. It's ridiculous.
sounds like one of those wish names for a foot spa.
It connects to Wi-Fi for your feet. Why? Why does the foot bath need Wi-Fi? I don't know. It just does. So on this deep dive, we're doing the IBLP cult. That's the main acronym that's known by Bill Gothard, 1961. He first it was just him. He wrote a book, which I believe he was calling it IBYC. So it's like the Institute for Basic Life Principles, and then it became known as like a Christian conservative group, more so because he was very like strict and like corporal punishment.
I always thought they were kind of Amishy.
They come across that way because they believe in like the modesty. Yeah. We grew up in a Mennonite community, so we would know.
Well, yeah, we were very much introduced to the Mennonite and like
Yeah.
How to act, what to wear.
Right. So like they didn't go so far as to like make their own clothes, but they would, they wouldn't wear like low cut stuff. They would cover a lot of times they wear long sleeves and like really long skirts.
Well, and a lot of them would wear the headpiece things too.
Well, Mennonites usually do.
Well, I'm talking about the cult people wearing.
I don't remember that. No, they always have really fancy big hair. The mom, like the Duggar's mom, she always had like a bumpet.
The younger daughters used to wear them when they were younger. They would have a braid and the little hat thing.
I don't remember that. I thought that was the other show. Anyways, our mom watched all of those shows. So
oh my god, we were watching it with her, willing or not willing.
Yeah, so finding out that they were a cult is weird because we watched that show from the time it was on until it stopped, basically.
Okay, but like as cliche as it might be, them cooking recipes good.
And we're going to talk about that because there's some really interesting inside information from my friend about the cooking part. Anyways, so go back to the basics. There are several trainings that he introduced into his curriculum. The basic life principles was for like adults and kids. So, and this is just like, educational stuff. What is that?
He broke his toenail off.
Ew, why'd you do that?
You okay? What happened?
Our guest dog is being weird.
Let me see. Are you bleeding? No, it is to the quick though. I'm sorry, Bubba.
No. We interrupt this program for a dog emergency.
He done did hurt himself.
Anyways.
Stop biting it.
Okay.
Stop.
So he started out as like selling books. And then he started doing VHS tapes of himself reading the like basically lecturing the material. And I think at first his main goal was to teach like church elders how to teach his programs to youth because he really focused on youth. He was very invested in like how children are raised, even though he did not have any children.
That's suspicious.
Yeah, it's really weird. At least as far as I know, he didn't have any children. He was never married.
So, like, let me groom you through your parents?
Kind of the vibe. That's what ended up happening, whether he intended for it to happen or not. So, one of the famous ones is the BLP, and then it's ATI is the homeschooling thing. You can Google it. It's still around. You can purchase the curriculum for ATI, which I forgot what it means.
Sorry.
I think it's advanced teaching something.
Ignore my giggles as I watched my dog lumber and all use of that word through my living room.
And the purpose of the ATI was like homeschooling with a religious perspective. And there's a couple more acronyms. I don't want to like super bore you with all of them, but there's like VOS, which is about sinning and like magical thinking kind of things. And then there's
like no witches,
authority. Yeah, no witches for sure.
What
Authority,
about, like, spooky season.
He called it an umbrella. So the umbrella of authority, which you've probably seen before because it did get. That's why this is so prolific to me. It got absorbed by like every church. We lived in a really small rural Mennonite community. And they talked about this stuff, like the umbrella of authority of God, and then under God is your father, and under your father is your mother, and under your mother are the children.
I kind of remember that, like going down the little hook.
Yeah, the big umbrella, little umbrellas.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately sometimes we use for mental health. We
lay down.
So they taught that to kids. And the curriculum is very Christian-based. Everyone I have spoken to said that it was a joke. You're not learning anything except for Bible facts and Bible trivia. If you learned something, it was because you liked it or you were good at it. So they gave you like basic math, basic English, and that's it. And they sort of faked their way into a high school diploma. Because the church was so big with so much money from donations of rich people. Very similar to a different cult, which I intend to talk about later, which is the cult that, what's the cult that Tom Cruise is in, that's like, it started on a boat, which I think is so funny. He did the same kind of thing where he sort of like brainwashed a bunch of rich people to give him money.
Noise.
Yeah, you know,
Can they brainwash a bunch of people to give me money?
that'd be nice. But what's that? Like, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Oh my god.
But
that dude on the memes.
maybe at first he was genuinely intending to like teach people things and probably just make some money, as far as I can tell. He made enough money that he ended up hiring his brother Steve. So he's Bill, which is short for William. His brother Steve, and he hired him to like help run a corporate office. And I don't know why or how, but it seems like they never worked in the same building. So you hire your brother and he runs everything for you, and you do what? I have no idea. In a different office in a different city. But that brings us to the next acronym, which is VOS is victory over sin. That's what I was not saying correctly. The idea that like we're teaching kids how to not sin, and it's abstinence only. There's no information being given. You're just being told, specifically girls are being told to submit to their father, and when they're married to submit to their husband.
I remember being told that, actually.
Yeah, classic. And
even to like basically they were like any man of the household, father, grandparent, brother.
Right. There was like an element of sexism
Yeah.
implied that like your older brother is also above you in that way.
Yeah.
Because boys and girls are kept pretty separate, but when they were together, they were almost always unsupervised. And that's my source is also someone who was inside the cult for that information, is like they would just tons of kids in a building left alone. So like they would buy an abandoned motel, and all the families would each be living in one of the motel rooms, or they would like renovate it, and they
or like have several rooms or something.
Mm-hmm. And one of them was supposedly in downtown of the city we live nearby, and they had bought a high rise, and they remodeled it to be where several families were living in this high rise, and the kids were most often like unsupervised because the parents are like in leadership roles, and they're out there like trying to bring in money from donations and all that kind of stuff. So the kids are basically homeschooling themselves. The moms are pretending to do something. I'm sure some of them worked really hard to teach their kids. I'm sure there was a few like relatively normal people in the group, but as far as I can tell, it attracted a lot of narcissism, because it was like, yeah, I'm in charge, and they're like, yeah, you're in charge. They're like, nice, I can do whatever I want to my children. Which brings me back to Bill Gothard's. There's literally videos of him saying, if you need to, you smack your kid around. Like, you can Google Bill Gothard talk, and he brings a child on stage, which he's in the documentary, and he talks about what happened to him, and he's like, I remember him calling me on the stage, and I knew him. My mom worked for him. I had been in his office before, and he was like, come up here. Let's say that you told me a little lie. And then he actually spanks this kid like on stage in front of everyone. And he's sort of like, ha ha ha, but you'll probably have to do it harder than that. And it's like, did he just tell everyone it's okay to abuse their children? Cool. So it started with abuse, and it led to neglect,
real casual,
because they're cousins. And the part about the housing situation I find interesting, because we know statistically girls are very likely to be assaulted or molested.
It's like alone situations,
yeah,
like that.
It's like 1 out of 3, or it might have gone up to 2 out of 3. I don't remember the statistic at the moment. But so the housing situation was like problematic, because you're either very, very isolated. So these families are like, they're homeschooled, they're not seeing other kids. So children experiment, and they're curious. And so then like siblings are experimenting with siblings. And that's how the Duggar part of the documentary like talks about how her brother molested her, the one that tried to run for a political office in Texas. And his dad succeeded to be in political office, which is fun. And I have more information about that as well that's absolutely terrifying. But
so go into it.
Let's say, so the first one, the blanket training, problematic. You can also Google it. They have shown us how they abuse their children. You put the baby on the blanket. It's like Michelle Duggar, and she's explaining how she did it. But every person who has talked about it, including the people in the documentary and people I have known, said that it's not as innocent as it sounds. So, like, you put the baby on the blanket. Do you remember it from the show?
You're gonna have to continue because I don't know.
You don't remember?
You're just saying baby on a blanket. You're not telling me
You
what
don't know
else
the
is
blanket
happening.
training?
No.
From the show. No. So the mom, she puts the blanket on the floor, like a small like square, and you're supposed to put the baby's like favorite toys around them, stuff that they like. And to prove that you're a good mom who has full control over your children when they're infants, like they can barely sit up, you tell them no when they reach for something that they want or like. And if they reach for it anyways, you smack their hand. And she's like, you smack their little hand. That's not the execution that most people did. You smack the kid, you hit the kid until they stop reaching for what they want so that they learn to obey you.
Bro, if you're gonna do that, hit him with the dog and the water bottle method.
No, baby.
Like,
you're not allowed to have fun. So the idea is that
though.
You could set that kid in a room because you're teaching them to overcome their sin of impulses. So I can sit this kid in a room and they'll just sit there and do nothing. So I don't have to watch them because they're safe, because they have learned helplessness. You cannot have fun. You cannot play. You cannot move.
So current children to this day,
just sit.
People I work with not knowing how to do the most simple things.
Perhaps.
Like change a trash bag.
Well, that's not as fun as playing with toys, but yes. So she explains it. It's terrifying, and they put a pretty coat of lipstick over it in the.
Well, the way it go is like when you start off with it, it sounds like the thing that several different groups of ethnicities and types of people do. Of like you put the like ones I keep seeing is the Pokemon one. You put the starter Pokemon in front of your kids and see which one they choose.
Yeah. Like we're choosing the next avatar.
It's like the Arrive version of it.
Instead of a fun new toy, you get smacked. So
imagine you go to grab Squirtle and then they slap you and they're like, it's Pikachu.
You picked the wrong one. You don't get any toys, in fact. That's also part of it. Like, they were theoretically rich, but the kids did not see any of that. It was very like neglectful, is what I've been told. And
yeah, the shows especially always made it seem like they're poor, and the people we know make it seem like their entire life they grew up poor, but then you go and see like their grandparents' house.
But their parents have money.
And it's like insanely big and there's so much space. And
well, and that's the thing, is that because they take advantage of their kids, which after this part, that's the alert program I was going to talk about, is how do they get all of this money is a good question. So like the last part about the kids is that they were sending underage kids to do jobs. At some point they decided it was a good idea. They opened like a corporate office because they made a fake college, it's not fake, but I would consider it to be not a real education, high school. Like, they're saying it's a high school equivalency, and it's really not. Like, everyone agrees that it's really not. Maybe in Bible studies, but not in actual basic education. No one's teaching you how to do much. So, what was I saying? The homeschooling part and the blanket thing and the VOS, the victory over sin thing. Part of that was also locking the kids in a room or a closet that's empty, and they called it the prayer room. And like, you can listen to the kids talk on the show, and they'll say like, yeah, I got in trouble, I got sent to the prayer room for 15 minutes, and they make it sound like they're following like child rules, like, oh, he's only 1, so he's only in the prayer room for 1 minute alone. Or they don't even say alone, like, he only has to go into the prayer room for 1 minute, so it's basically time out. But if you're 15, they're going to leave you in there for hours because you're in trouble.
Well, and you, in their mind, you have more brain capacity to sit there and think about what you've done, probably.
Right, which in some ways, like, okay, sure.
Which my thought process would be grab a spoon and tunnel through the wall.
I gotta get out of here. But they make it, in the show, if you watch the show, it makes it seem like they're doing the kids a favor because they're teaching them to stay away from sin. Like part of the victory over sin was the Nike thing, if you remember that, like when they met Dolly Parton and they said Nike and the boys have to look at their shoes so they don't see Dolly Parton's boobs. Do you remember that?
No.
You don't? I thought it was. I remember watching it like, this is so weird.
I don't remember them meeting
The
Dolly.
mom's like, Nike, and they're like, not boobs.
Biddies. You know, bro, I'm right there with you. I'd be staring at Dolly Parton.
But they like loved. They were like, Dolly Parton's wonderful, but we don't want the boys to see her boobs. Like, oh my god, they're gonna see boobs.
That's kind of her spiel.
Anyways, so locking your kids in a closet, totally fine. You know, totally chill, not a problem.
It makes me question the people that I know nowadays that still do prayer rooms. That I know for a fact are like in closets.
There's no books. You're not allowed to entertain yourself. You're supposed to like pray for forgiveness for being bad. And usually, from what I can tell, like they don't know why they're in trouble. They're a kid. They don't understand what's going on. They just are being told they're full of sin, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, I guess." And they just come out and they cry and they be like, "Sorry, Dad." And he's like, "Well, I'm only gonna hit you once.
I'm only gonna hit you 15 times.
I'm glad you learned your lesson." Anyways, I'll pivot to the housing thing because that's crazy. So one of the ways that they paid for everything is through child labor. Ray.
Jesus.
So
literally.
like literally. So it's the alert program, and I did not write down what the acronym is. It's something.
So Colt Daddy Godfrey out here,
Gothard
out here like, hey, so like,
did you want to like get rich off of child labor?
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Because there's also that thing, you know, like the church elders are like convinced of your method, right? They're like, oh my god, this changed my life, this changed my kids' lives, this is so good, this has made me closer to Jesus and all that stuff, and they're not necessarily getting paid for this. So he's like, it's kind of like that thing of like through what is that joke about putting stuff on your resume? Like you'll get paid in experience.
Oh, but you're just like an apprentice.
But yeah, you're getting nothing. Like because really. Excuse. They're competing for Daddy Gothard's like attention. So whoever he likes the best, whoever donates the most money from their private wealth or whatever, right? They like rise in the ranks faster. And when he likes you because of money or whatever reasons, he then starts getting you a paycheck. Or at least just power, because a lot of the times I don't know how much of a paycheck there really was until the children were involved. And I don't remember them ever mentioning it on the show that the kids had jobs and stuff.
I kind of remember. Well, they used to try to pass off some of the kids' jobs as just being like, oh, they do stuff around the house, or they like go and get me things.
They're like full-time nannies.
Yeah, most of the girls were nannies or cleaners. They would go clean their neighbors' houses and get paid for cleaning the houses, but that was kind of like brushed off.
And sometimes they're watching other people's kids, which the Duggars seem to be a little bit different because obviously they had money from TV and stuff. But like other families lived in that communal way, the motel and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the daughters would
the ones we know.
Yeah, okay. The daughters would be watching the other kids. So like there's like say 6 families and they each have like 12 kids. So like 3 like 15-year-old girls are watching like 16 kids. Huh? Oh, my bad. I'm covering up my mic. Oh. So like a bunch of like under 17 girls are watching like tens of kids. And they're all being encouraged to have kids for religious reasons, but I have a slight conspiracy thought that is supported by a little bit of evidence that the point of having kids is free labor and free money. Because if you, child, have to obey your parents, then your money is my money. So they like encourage them to go to school and go to college at some point. At first they didn't because they didn't like secular education. They thought the devil was going to get you. But later,
Valid.
the devil's in education. You'll become a liberal. Watch out.
They might learn about Bob Ross. Beat the devil out of it.
But so for example, like girls who showed promise would be given a job at the Gothard school place, like the institute place.
Their fake school.
Well, in the office where they sold the VHS tapes from and all of that stuff, like their headquarters, right? And they would be sent to live there with other teenagers. So no parental supervision, a bunch of teenagers. How do you think that went?
At a headquarters? Who's in charge of the cooking?
The kids.
Okay, but like the ones I know be burning shit.
Yeah, I mean, the cooking thing is a whole problem. The recipes, some of them are delicious, but like there's a whole problem of nutritional content. Like if you break it down, these mass meals that are basically just carbs.
Yeah.
It's like carb.
The delicious ones I remember are just carbs.
Tater tot casserole, barely any sausage, tons of tater tots, a little bit of like mushroom gravy. Like it's not the worst.
Or like the chicken.
But the tortilla one.
The chicken tortilla one, that one's just straight carbs.
It was like one can of chicken. That was cream of chicken soup.
Green beans, meat, and chopped potatoes. That one kind of.
Yeah.
Not that bad.
But the inside source talked about that they were all taught those like same recipes, and like that everyone in his family had bad teeth because they were like nutritionally deprived, and at one point he got like scurvy from low vitamin C. Like there's not very many vegetables in those recipes. There's not and the protein is less than the carb. Like it's just supposed to be filling. It's not meant to be nutritionally dense. It's supposed to be filling. So that's bad. That was a tangent a little bit, but that's a whole thing. Okay, so the alert program, the point of it was similar to the Duggars, the older brother that went to jail, right?
Yes.
For being a pedo on the internet.
Yes.
So a real problem these days, apparently.
Chris Hansen, the Tete Puedo.
Get him, Chris. The program is supposed to be for kids who, like, to the outside world, it's for like youth offenders. Like, oh, your kid is bad. This is a Christian program that will like turn his life around. We're gonna send him in the woods. We're gonna send him camping. And
is that the one where they would straight up kidnap kids and put them in the woods?
No, but I kind of wonder if those people got their ideas from each other
or in league, because like I've heard people talking about, and there was somebody I worked with at one point that was like, yeah, my parents told this group and they literally came and got me and took me into the woods.
Yeah, they're trying to do like a scared straight kind of thing.
But they literally like took a bunch of teenagers out into the woods and left them out there.
And I'm not sure like what year he started doing that part specifically. I want to say it was in the 80s. So maybe they inspired each other.
Maybe.
But the weird part is that they said it was like a wilderness camp and they made it sound fun. But then why is it for like youthful offender type people, right? Like, so you have a boy and he's showing signs of being like attracted to girls.
So you're going to reward him by something fun is the way it makes it sound.
We're going to make him rough it in the woods and he's going to learn to overcome his sin, right? He's going to stop looking at his sister that way. Get him. But what it usually was is a forced labor camp. And I know because one of the people that we know was sent there and forced to do construction in like 90 something degree weather for like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And that kid, before he got in trouble with the law, like they said that he went to like therapy, basically. Like they implied that it was a very heavily religious therapy, but that it was therapy. And the alert program was saying that they were doing therapy, and they were not. There is no curriculum. There was no training. It was literally like throw a bunch of kids out here and have them do labor. So they would either be like chain gang like labor, or like, hey, you're going to renovate this place so that we can all move in there together. And that's a lot of what the family that we know would end up doing. It was almost like they were flipping buildings to like sell, because a ton of the money is from properties, like people who donated properties, and then they would renovate them and they would sell them and they'd have a bunch of money, like millions of dollars. So
people that just own land and decide to like
Yeah.
put a building on it.
And they have so many kids that they had to renovate these properties because there's nowhere for them to sleep or cook. They always put an industrial kitchen, and like the headquarters itself, like they were living in the headquarters and cooking in the headquarters. And so like the Steve guy was the first red flag. All of his secretaries were like 12. And Bill,
yikes.
yeah. And Bill, his older brother, the head guy, all of his secretaries were like young adults. So when the girls would turn like 18, right? Then they would get sent there for like secretary training so they could get like paid. So behind the scenes,
18 one, I will say maybe not as bad, but who the fuck
it's
Steve?
Still gross.
It's still gross, but like I question what the secretary training actually is.
Right.
But like I hope on everything that some of those girls actually like learned how to be a good secretary and like wasn't horribly abused.
I mean, they were already taught how to obey, so I'm assuming they're fantastic at that.
Give me my coffee.
So Steve got caught first because apparently he was a little bit more blasé about his doings.
Yikes.
Bill didn't get caught until like I want to say the 2010s. Like around the time the Duggar show went off the air is whenever he had to get like kicked out of the group basically. And they were like, we renounce him, but we're keeping his teaching. So that's where they're at now. They're still doing that. So Steve got caught first. He assaulted a lot of girls, and a lot of them were interviewed on the Shiny Happy People thing, and they talk about how he was presented as this like church elder with like all of this wisdom and knowledge, right? So they were like, if I talk to him, I'm going to be like closer to God because he's going to give me good advice. He wouldn't tell me to do something unless it was to make my life like better or make me smarter or less sinful. And so he would get them alone. And one of the girls talked about how he always asked someone to stay late to help him with something. And every single time he did that, a girl was sexually assaulted.
None of them thought to bring a knife.
No weapons for you.
Never mind. I forgot they're supposed to be docile.
You're being brainwashed. You are, docile and obedient.
I wonder how many of them fell into like the classic cult thing of being like, "Oh, I'm serving him. I get to have his kid."
We're not quite in the Mormon cult level of like multiple wives or anything, as far as I know. But there's some similarities sometimes. So way later, Bill Gothard got caught, and his was like older girls, but like in their 20s, basically 18 to 20, and he was accused of like being inappropriate, like sexual assaults, as in like to a point, like grabbing at them and like harassing them and like stuff like that. But I don't know if he was
being a handsy mofo.
Yeah, but I don't know if he was actually accused of rape before. But I know that like Steve got caught with more than
So it's probably not far off to say that he probably
It's
did
possible,
too.
yeah. And a lot you can go. I highly encourage people to watch the documentary if they want to, but I watched it for you, so you didn't have to. But you can always just Google who's come forward. Quite a few women came forward. So yeah, the programs were supposed to be leadership roles, like before the guys got caught. I think Steve had left, maybe, but while Bill was still trucking, towards the end of the popularity of the group, it's like super tied into that prosperity gospel thing, which I'm sure you vaguely recall from when we used to go to church. Like, if you pray to God, he'll give you more money, basically.
Kind of remember that, but it was such a big LOL in the face of all our poor asses that lived in that town. So like,
that's fair.
Bro, we didn't even have like a grocery store, and half the time
right?
The food place was never open.
Yeah,
except for the snick.
Right. So there's a couple more like main points I want to hit. So basically, like cult of money, cult of sex, duh. But I don't want to minimize the fact that so many women and girls were like sexually assaulted or abused. Like, and that's part of why I think this is really bad. Is that the curriculum from the ATI is the same and like it's still happening, and so girls are like abstinence only. We already know that that's like dangerous and it doesn't work, but it's also like if you're taught to go off the authority of the men in your life, and like let's say that like one of them assaults you, then it's like normal and it's okay.
Nope.
So then you're going through life with that mentality, and that was it was really heartbreaking to listen to the oldest Duggar sister talk about it. She's like devastated. She's struggling with like all of these really strongly held beliefs that she's had for so long. And then she's like, no, they were bad, and I'm trying to deal with it, because their dad actually stole money from them. He lied about their age. That whole like you're my kid so you have to obey me thing. He forged her documents to say that she was under 18 when she got pregnant and she was giving birth and she was married. He took all of that money.
What a dick.
Yeah, he forced her to do the TV show. And he lied about her age, and then he stole all of the money that her and her husband made making that show.
Oh my god.
Which is right up the alley of the family that we were just talking about, taking money from their children for forced labor, which is great. So they made lots of money, and if you confronted them, they hit you. So they win.
What'd you say, Jimothy?
Not Jim Bob.
I just found, I was searching the umbrella thing because I was trying to remember what it looked like, and I found one that's like influence, and it's like a graph, and it's the umbrella, it says parent, church, government, and then those under authority, and it has little arrows that go over that say rebellion, and then it goes witchcraft.
Oh no.
And then Satan.
Of course.
So the more you rebel, the more witchcraft umbrella, Satan you get.
The umbrella is protecting you from evil, basically.
And then like the original one.
That's the one that I saw.
The Christ husband, wife.
Yeah. The politics is actually an interesting thing to bring in, and the Satan thing, because this is not a joke, and it's very serious. They believed in magical thinking to the point where if you brought a book or a movie into your home, you're inviting the devil into your home. Literally, demons will haunt you and like make your life hell and like negatively influence your family if you bring it into your house. Like, so like the whole Harry Potter debate, the way that like all of these churches pick that up, these are the people who started that mentality. Like, better to like literally to the point where like it'd be better to like kill your children than let them sin. So beating them up is no big deal. And
so like literally like any media,
you
basically
brought Harry Potter into our home, and a demon came through the book into our home every time you read that book.
I wonder how they felt about like, okay, so like basically any like media, but like their agenda, Christianized agenda.
Like he like so like Chronicles.
But like okay, but like say it was like you know those weird women's Bibles?
I guess.
I'm like, what did they feel about those? Or what did they feel about if you brought in like Hebrew
female empowerment,
like Hebrew teachings or something? Would they be like, oh, that's not us, that's not?
I mean, I don't think there was allowed to be critical thinking about the Bible. It was just rote memorization for the most part.
Probably.
But yeah, the what's it called? What are you doing? Don't draw on me.
Your cat an eyeball.
She's crazy.
Just a little bit.
So,
but at least I don't think books equals Satan.
Well, that's true. Not that crazy. I remember that making me so mad as a kid. Pissed me off. It's like, listen, J.K. Rowling sucks, but like, no. Latin is not a magical language. If it was, oh man.
Okay, but literally at that point, if it was taken back to the times when people still spoke Latin and were super hellfire and brimstone,
that all Romans are witches?
But they were so like Roman Catholic, like, you know.
Eventually, well, Latin is one of the oldest languages we have.
I know, but I'm thinking like
it's pre-Christianization.
Like, I guess they still followed old gods. Not quite to the point of...
Right. The Holy Roman Empire was much later than the Roman Pantheon. Anyways, we'll talk about crazy fun religious stuff later. The last acronym that I will give you is LEAP. And I'm bringing this one up because this is what I was talking about when I said this is problematic and it should still be being talked about. LEAP is a leadership entrepreneur program, and people who give off the vibe that they know what this is are Elon Musk. Like, have as many children as possible because you bring more God onto the planet by making
Can you
children.
really believe a guy who named his kid Numbers?
Right?
Just saying.
But like right now, literally, like Project 2025, this is where I am veering into a slight conspiracy thing, is that like the mentality of like have a ton of kids, get as much power and political influence as you possibly can, and just like get rich. That's the goal. It's literally gospel of prosperity. Like if God loves you and you're good, then you'll be blessed with money and children. So we're making it happen by like forcing ourselves in. So they started this LEAP program to train. They call it the Joshua generation. So like to go out into the world and preach basically. So they believe in religion in schools and they want everyone to have it forcibly. Doesn't that sound like the government right now?
Yeah.
Here's your Bibles for your school. Hey, we don't want those. Well, too bad. I spent $1 million on them anyways. Yeah, we're not giving those to the students. Okay, well, I just wasted $1 million for fun. Good thing that guy got fired.
Yeah, really glad. While that stuff was happening in our area in these schools up here, the place where I work, we had so many customers coming through talking about it.
Oof.
Who were red hatters.
Oof.
And they were pissed.
Yeah.
And I did not,
because they wanted the Bible.
No, they were mad that they were doing it.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was like
even the most Christian person tends to still believe in separation of church and state because they don't want Satanism to be taught at schools because the Satanists will not let it go, bro. They're not gonna let it go.
Honestly, some of the stuff that I've seen that the Satanic Temple puts out, most of their stuff is like eye for an eye.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hate to tell you guys, like you're preaching the same thing, but only one of you is actually living up to it.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of problems to talk about. But instead, I'm just going to make you more scared of your government. Ready?
Go.
One of the lobbyists specifically that we have evidence of is David Green, who owns Hobby Lobby.
He's a sus man.
He attended the IBLP church trainings because they do that. We're gonna talk about this in a different episode, but the Lululemon, not Lululemon. What do I keep doing?
LuLaRoe.
The LuLaRoe thing. How they had those like big conferences once a year to like jazz everybody up.
Yeah, literally like pyramid scheming conference.
Mm-hmm.
Like
they did those regularly, trap. And the idea was to attract rich people and companies so that they would donate, right? So if you're a Christian, you'll give us money. And David Green is a huge supporter of the homeschooling and the Christian education, and he attended the IBLP trainings. So that sucks because he's involved in the current government scheme of people who donate to who. He who must not be named. And the young politicians thing has led to several. I don't if people noticed, like at the beginning of this year, there were a lot of younger politicians who were like Republican that were getting elected, and people were really excited because they're like, oh, young people are getting involved. So a lot of those people have been tied to this group, and I made a list of their names.
That's disturbing.
It's very disturbing but to me, it perfectly explains why the Project 2025 thing is happening, because it's those people who are writing it. They think that we can become a Christian nation and that we can
it makes me wonder if that certain person that we're thinking of he's
either a puppet and has no idea the depth of what he's dealing with, or he's like, hell yeah, let's go, brother.
Well, because I wonder about his son and daughter. I mean, they're pretty successful.
Right, it's about, I think that's why he would buy in. The gospel of prosperity, 100% he would buy into that.
He's
If
like,
he
well, I
even
got my
pretends
kids
to
to
be a
listen to me.
Christian. Yeah. And we're not going to talk about the way he talks about his children. It's disgusting.
I like my suitcase.
So a really fun part of it also, speaking of children, is recently, probably heard it on like TikTok and stuff, that there's this thing such as the Mormon cult thing, which I won't get into, but the Ruby Frankie girl was, you remember, like being an influence, like a Mormon influencer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole thing because of the secret lives of Mormon wives or whatever.
And she did so many messed up things.
Oh yeah, it's bad, and we'll probably talk about her too. So there was like seminars, and this lady was supposedly a therapist, but I honestly wonder if she has ties to the IBLP like curriculum, because she talks about like being your brother's keeper, right? So like you confess your sins to me and I confess my sins to you, kind of, and we prevent each other from sinning, right? So if you, let's say that you're my father and I'm your son, and you're like, son, I'm just having a hard time, I really want to look at porn. I'm like, Dad, don't do it. It'll hurt God. It'll hurt Mom. And he's like, I've been thinking about looking at porn too, and you got to help me. And at first, the idea of it is like, yeah, let's hold each other accountable.
Like stop each other.
Right. Like
help me, bestie, save me.
Yeah, but it's like, that's your child, so that's weird. I feel like it would be better if it was your wife.
I'm a little more worried about like it being with a kid that leaning towards let's watch it together.
And that's exactly where it goes. That is exactly what I was about to say. It becomes like almost incestuous, like not literally, but like incestuous in that like you're telling your son like your fantasies, and then you end up like that's what they said.
Bros that flap together stay together.
Yeah, apparently families that flap together stay together. But that was it. It was in the Ruby Frankie.
That makes me worried about the states that have that type of PORN. As like their number one type in their state.
Right.
Sus.
But it was supposed to like, they're supposed to be keeping each other safe, and it just basically turns into like telling each other what kind of porn they like, and then like the boys club, right? Like, don't tell Mom, but I just watched some really weird stuff yesterday. And like, oh dude, me too. And hence the child pornography thing, because you made sex so taboo that we have to do bad things that we know are bad, and so therefore we're turned on by things that we know are bad. And everyone knows the classic taboos: incest, they've already done that; child molestation, they've already done that. It's almost normal to them because they literally grew up with it happening constantly from like church elders, family members.
It's what siblings. Is it called? Reverse immersion therapy. Like
trauma.
They've been like so stuck in it and know nothing else. There's literally nothing else.
Because they know that it's wrong, but that's
like that's their world.
But that's part of why it was exciting at first, because you're a teenager. Don't have sex, kids.
Oh well, watch me.
Oh no, what we're doing is wrong, and that makes it harder. So if it's with a stranger, you know, and you're both willing, consent is cool. That's great. But if it's not, which apparently that happened to a lot of people, and it sucks. So yeah, that was a thing. I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was disgusting, and it's apparently present in several other cult-like entities. So I didn't
makes me happy about the whole trend, even though it's a little
oppressive.
It's a little much, but it's also a little like, yeah, fuck them guys up for me. Because I like
porn sites being blocked.
Websites being blocked, and then it falls into the effect of like Chris Hansen Catch a Predator type videos. Like the people who are making groups and going after them and like getting them in public places, embarrassing them and their names out there, like doxing people.
Yeah.
Like, and even some of them actually getting super legit on catching them and getting their local PD involved, and like, it's terrifying. Especially because
some of them absolutely take those people off the internet.
But also, like, there are these people that are, like, self-righteousing themselves to go catch them.
Right. That's the part where I'm like,
that's the part that I worry about.
Yeah, that makes me concerned.
But also, at the same time, I'm like, tase them, slap them, like, get them.
Get them, but also don't.
But also, wink, wink. Leave that to the guys in the jail system.
Like, catch them. get their address, send it to the police, screenshot. Like, I know sometimes they won't do anything about it, but like, don't be a vigilante. I absolutely will not advocate for anyone to be Batman, okay?
Yeah.
Don't be taking that from what we just said. So anyways, back to my list of problematic people, and then I'm done talking about Bill Gothard and his creepy cult. Politicians. The Duggars are in politics. The dad still is. Some of their very close friends, Mike Huckabee, Congressman Charles Taylor. These are people who attended or are still part of the group or have openly supported the group, which is fun. Texas Governor Rick Perry, who's considering running for president in the next election, by the way, still actively supports the group and says that they're great. Sarah Palin attended.
No one likes her.
But doesn't that make so much sense now that you know? Like, having like her and her crazy TV show with her daughter, and then like her weird beliefs, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, she's in a cult. I get it now.
LOL. We all knew she was weird. We just couldn't put our finger on it.
She was.
There's so many people I know that hate her.
Right. I mean, she fell out of fashion.
Even the most like left or right, like furthest way you swing. I know so many people that dislike her in every way possible.
They did, but that's the thing. It's just like with the Duggars. At first, they were so popular because they're like, finally Christians in the mainstream, and then it was like, oh, they're freaks, and it's like, well, duh, because the loudest voice is not the most normal,
or the most right.
Right. And if people don't know, Sarah Palin was the mayor of Alaska. And then people who have been linked to David Green via Hobby Lobby and also have attended some of the Joshua Generation things that have connections to Project 2025 are like the congressman, the governor, Sonny Perdue, who was the governor of Georgia, and Trump appointed as the Department of Agriculture, which is great.
What about Junior Man?
I don't know.
Brainworm guy?
No idea.
I wonder if he's involved at all.
Also, former Congressman Madison Cawthorn. He's the one that was the super young one that only lasted for like 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said that January 6th was just the beginning. And he got removed from off, or he stepped down. They got rid of him. Do you remember him? He's really young.
I think that they removed him.
I know it said former Congressman Republican Madison Cawthorn.
Here, let me look him up.
But he made a lot of threats, and he attended the basically Future Leaders of America. It reminds me of FFA or whatever, FSA, FLA. FCCLA, but the Jesus version of FCCLA.
What was his name?
Madison Cawthorn. He worked for Trump.
Oh, he's in a wheelchair.
What?
Yeah.
That's weird. I don't
remember him being in a wheelchair.
I don't either. Somebody got him. I was kidding.
God damn.
JK.
I'm gonna steal the wheels off his chair. That's a little fucked up.
He went like full cray. He was like, we're gonna take over the government. And
after working for Representative Mark Meadows, Cawthorn was elected to succeed Meadows in 2020, became the first member of Congress born in the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
His tenure was marked by various controversies, including allegations of insider trading, improper payments, bringing a handgun to an airport,
as you should,
leaking nude videos.
Sure.
He lost renomination parties to Chuck Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't necessarily removed. It was he didn't last very long.
He didn't get reelected.
But he also had hella allegations, and I'm not seeing whether or not he was charged for them.
Okay. Yeah. I just read the quote that he made threats to like January 6th is just the beginning, basically.
Oh, apparently he was fine when he was in office, but April 2024, he rear-ended into a Florida State Trooper's car.
Oh.
And was cited for violating Florida's move over law.
Ooh. Yikes.
In 2024, he was in a passenger car that crashed, resulted in his paralysis.
Boy.
So he done erected
He done
it a
goofed.
lot. Right, he done goofed. He's over there. What happened was,
And you know, in some ways, like, you know, Jim Duggar and Jim Bob Duggar or whatever, like, they got some comeuppance. They're still pretty high. The boy is not, but the dad is still pretty high up in the church group, and he's also still like trying to be a politician. But they kind of got what was coming to them in a way, being a piece of crap.
I mean,
Some karma has happened. I'll give you the last couple of Joshua generation people. So Trump appointed a religious liberty commission. I don't know if you've heard about that. That he created it as like a group in the government. And he appointed Mike Johnson to it, and he's the Republican. Obviously, he's a Republican. Um, People out there probably know who Mike Johnson is, but I am currently drawing a blank. And then the last one on my list is
wasn't he a senator?
Probably the Republican Florida Representative Dan Webster was also on that list. So these people.
He was a Speaker of the United States House of Representatives.
Okay. Oh, Speaker Mike Johnson. That makes sense. So all of these people that I listed have ties to this group.
He looks like Pee Wee Herman.
Nice. Excuse me, we're recording. Can you like sit?
Yeah.
So that's my list, and I just find it really concerning, you know, like I'm curious of your thoughts, but I find it concerning to just know that like it feels like very like hiding in plain sight kind of thing. Like we're trying to start a new government, and I know that we've all heard like the conspiracy thoughts of The Handmaid's Tale.
I mean, I think that definitely skews some of what's going on because of when that came out. But
like before versus after.
Yeah, because I mean, if that would have come out after, I think a lot more people's attention would be drawn to what's currently happening.
True.
But I just wish people would pay more attention to what's happening right in front of their face.
Fair. Like when people tell you that they're going to do bad things, it's a little wild to me to just be like, no, they're doing a good job. And then everyone is finally like realizing that people might not have the best of intentions. And I'm certainly not out here saying like all Christians are bad or anything, but like I don't consider this to be normal Christianity. Like this is a problematic, abusive.
It's giving cult, and there's a reason why so many people are saying it's giving cult.
Right. Like the 10 people I have met who have left it have said it's a freaking cult.
Yeah.
Because it's like the rules don't apply to you. You don't have to make money. You can use your children to make money. You don't have to listen to the government. We have a compound with religious freedom. You don't have to the rules don't apply to you. You don't have to go to real college. You can go to fake college and we'll get you a fake degree and you can get a real job.
You know what a new group of people that I'm curious are part of it as well is, you know, the people that are like, I wasn't driving my car. I don't need a license. I was traveling.
What does that mean?
They are calling themselves sovereign citizens.
Oh, I've heard of that. That's more of like they keep citing like the Articles of Confederation, and it's like that was before the Constitution. That's no longer technically part of.
There's some of them on a lot of the recent, like I may or may not have been binge watching like Cops and True Crime Network stuff because it's entertaining to my brain at the moment. So like there's like some recently that you're just like, oh,
Miss Chronically Online jokester over here.
Yeah, I like I like a good review of Chris Hansen tasing people. When he comes out and tells you to sit down, you sit down. I would love to have him
sit down.
That's his line. He walks in there and he's like, have a seat. And they always like, sit down. No. They bow to the power of Chris Hansen.
I got caught.
I would like to see him do an interview with some of these IBL people. I'd be interested to see what they spilled to the Hansen.
That would be very interesting. I doubt he could get them in a room. And with the way that pardons and government nonsense is going, who knows if they would even agree to it. They'd probably be like, nah.
We're better than you.
So, pivoting slightly, now it's your turn to teach me about something, or we could do what we've been reading. Or we could tell a silly story. What do you think?
My dog looks at me like we should yap.
Yep.
So I had a thought of we could talk about DIY disasters because we both experienced quite a few. And I am not as well researched as my partner Lenny. This is just shit to be happening. Let's be honest. But so like what happened was I had decided I was going to build a greenhouse because I would like to be able to plants. I would like to be able to go outside and have like this little area, no buggos.
Of a dog chewing on its tail.
Put it closer to him. Yeah, get in there.
Stop it.
Lick, 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 lick. Now he's gonna lick the mic.
Don't lick it. No.
I'm gonna lick it.
No.
It's mine.
I don't want your kisses.
I give you keys.
No keys.
Come here, Bubba. Sit down. My dog is
we
in fact
this program to bring you dog.
Are you good? Are you done? Can I yap, sir? Excuse me.
Yes. So
he was part of it.
We have completed the greenhouse.
So I was not even like before that. So like I'm like, okay, go buy lumber. It takes me quite a while to like get what I need, get the money to buy what I need, whatever. Sure. Because # we broke in this economy. Yes. So I'm like working on getting everything I need. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. This is gonna be so cool. And I cut a bunch of stuff and I start getting it put together. It takes me a really long time. Weather's nice and cozy. I was like going out there whenever it was like nice during the midday and stuff. And I'm out there working on it. And then my drill catches on fire as I'm screwing.
Oh, yeah, I forgot the drill exploded.
So I'm screwing like the clear corrugated like plastic panels on top of the greenhouse, and I'm doing it properly. Like I know what I'm doing. I'm not gonna brag, but you have to screw them in because they're technically a self-tapping screw. You have to screw them in with a socket, not like a flathead or a Phillips or something. Yeah. So I'm trying to do that. And then my drill is like sus.
El Cheapo plastic.
Yeah, I got the cute girly pack from Amazon. I'm not gonna lie, they got me. But it was just supposed to be for like simple house stuff. And then we moved to big house, and then it's not so simple house stuff no more.
Yeah.
But like working on
not heavy duty.
Yeah, not heavy duty, using it for like 3 hours straight drilling something, you know. But I'm like trying to drill it, and I butter like what do they call it? They call it flowering. When you break a socket and it flowers open.
I've never heard
I shattered it. It went and like peeled itself open, and like what? I completely ruined the socket. And then I'm like, well, I guess I'm done doing that. And then the next day I got a new one. I bought a new one. And I was like, okay, I have a new socket. And so I'm back doing what I was doing. And then the drill starts to smell a little funny.
Ooh.
And I'm like, suspicious.
I taste electrical fire.
Tasty electrical fire. So I'm like working on it still. I'm like, oh, it's fine. And I'm like kind of taking breaks because I have to like crawl down the ladder, get the piece of plastic, crawl back up, screw in, up and down, going back and trying to screw the plastic in. And I am working on the roof, and I had already dropped the drill like 3 times and screws. So I had to go up and down even more than I wanted to. And then the fucking thing catches on fire in my hand.
Yay!
And I'm panicked.
And then she yeeted it into the newly created fish pond.
Yeah, I panicked and I yeeted it into the newly created fish pond. Dear fishies, I'm sorry. I'm glad you didn't die.
No fish were harmed in the making
of
this
anything, I think it made them stronger. Because they're huge now. But, you know, I just casually catched a drill on fire. And then what's hilarious is that my amazing neighbor happened to be outside. And they heard me scream and then start laughing. And then he walked over with his little broke foot. And he's like, LOL, what happened? And I'm like, LOL, I caught it on fire.
Oh my goodness.
And then he let me borrow his tools so I could finish. And then I'm like, yay, I'm done. And then no, not so done. Because a week later, like I literally had it perfectly put together. It was beautiful. Like we did, like I even had Lanny help me.
Yeah,
like it was
done.
It was pretty much done.
Probably could have used a couple more reinforcements.
Yeah,
you know, post hoc, you're much more knowledgeable than before.
Well, yeah. So
clarity.
I
post destruction clarity.
Yeah. So the weather got really bad here, and we had tornadoes really close by. Like literally, like
the night that we left after.
Yeah, literally that night.
Finished it blew away.
Yeah, the
spoiler alert, it gone.
Spoiler alert, it gone. Like the little flashback thing videos people keep doing, but like the wind literally picked it up and sent it all the way across our 3 acres, and I found pieces everywhere.
One of the pieces was embedded in the side of the house.
It still is.
And one is still there.
I
It's like
can't
stabbed
reach it.
into the roof line.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's too far up there. I'm
if
not
you're
grabbing
the insurance company, know that didn't what?
No, there's nothing there. Shut up.
Everything is
It's
great.
fine. But word of advice: DIY disaster. Use a drill right for the job, and a high quality socket, and
that's why I brought my heavy duty drill over to help them finish a project.
Right, and then also don't forget to put posts. What is it? 6 feet in the ground for structures, because I had just had the structure sitting on top of the ground. I hadn't had anything securing it to the ground, which is why I picked it up like a kite and threw it.
Nice.
So that was fun.
Excellent. I don't know how many disasters I've had.
My favorite one of yours is the chicken coop.
I've had plenty of adjust as you go along that aren't fabulous, but 7 years later they still are there. So I did acceptable.
We did a pretty good job on that coop. I'm gonna be honest with you.
But we did have a silly thing that I don't know. I don't trust. No offense to men out there, but I don't be trusting you. My husband is smart and responsible, like 95% of the time.
I can say the same about myself.
It's like forgetfulness and stuff. Something happened, and it's like below freezing for 2 weeks. So we didn't go out and check on our chickens like every single day because they had tons of food and tons of water. And I would like try to go out every day and make sure their water was thawed. Don't come at me, chicken lovers. I did. They were fine. But especially because the year before our power went out, so they got like frostbite, and I had to like nurse them all back to health. And I felt so bad. It took
so long. Oh my gosh! And they had heat because we were like worried about it being too cold, and then because we had stuff set up, and then it got too cold, and the power went out, and then they were screwed.
Yeah, there just wasn't anything we could do. I certainly had like a fire, but anyways, the electrical lamp, it always says to be careful because it's combustible, because it's a giant heat bulb and they can explode, and the metal gets hot, and if the metal's touching something, that could catch on fire. And chickens are really good at this cool thing called roosting, and they like to jump on things, and they apparently decided to jump up and try to roost on the cord.
Pre-roast them. Pre-roasted chicken.
And knocked the lamp down into the little hay stuff and caught it on fire. And my husband was like, "Do you see smoke? Is that smoke? Oh my God." And I think he called me, didn't he? He was like,
I think you were gone.
He ran outside and I had just come in, and he was like, "Chicken goes on fire."
Run.
Like, what? And I was like, "For reals?" He's like, "Yes, fire extinguisher now." Good thing I just bought one.
LOL.
So we learned to double reinforce the lamp to make sure that chickens can't catch themselves on fire. And I was very paranoid. Please go to the hospital if you think you have smoke inhalation. I don't care if it was only for like 10 minutes. I watched This Is Us, and I am now permanently traumatized by that guy dying of smoke inhalation.
Yeah.
It's really scary. And my husband was like coughing for like a week. And I was like, "Are you dying? Like, for reals? Go to the hospital, please. Don't be like the Gothard cult and not go to the hospital. Go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, please." So I guess moving on from negative Nancy Town. Don't join a cult, kids. Let's do, what are we reading right now? Yours has a feather on it.
Mine's about witches.
Witches.
So I'm reading.
Now we know way too much about you, just with that one sentence.
Valid. I am exactly what that cult is afraid of.
That's right. Your umbrella can't protect you from me. Caw-caw.
I am the umbrella, motherfucker. Okay, pause. Look at Choppy's teeth. He has a tooth sticking out.
Oh my god.
Like a little gremlin.
He's doing a blep, but a tooth blep.
Why you do that?
Because he's silly.
Oh my god, his last brain cell's sticking out.
You're reading what? By whom?
So the first book is The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. And the first one was about how to explain.
What did you say? The nature of what?
Nature of Witches.
So it's about witches.
Yes.
And whammon.
and whamming.
This one has like crows on it or something.
I was like, so the first one was about this lady who is like afraid of her own powers. And it's like there's like different type of witches, and she is all of them instead of just a singular version. So
she's like ultra powerful.
Yeah, basically. So there's summer, winter. It's like the seasons. It's the seasons. Yeah. So
like Agatha all along, she's a chaos witch.
Kind of, yeah. So there's seasonal witches, and when it's not your season, your power is less. But she is what they call, what Rachel Griffin had wrote as being an ever witch, which is like not very common within it, and
in the universe.
It means within their witchverse. Nice. And it means that she control everything and control it in different ways, but they don't know a lot about them because it's been so long since the last ever witch existed. And
it says she also wrote Fable.
Yes,
I heard of that.
I've heard of it too, but I think I read it, but I don't remember it.
Yeah.
But she basically like goes through all these trials and tribulations, and freaking Rachel Griffin is like hardcore when she comes off killing characters because she just kills them.
Yeah. She's like, and he's dead.
And he's dead. Literally the one was like, and a tornado hit him and he's dead.
Oh. He got Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, Bro got Wizard of Oz.
Oh my god.
And it's so sad. And then so that book, super good. And I thought to myself, I was like, oh, it's a series, because I found out they have multiple books. And I thought that the series was going to be like, they're all connected and it's a continuation of her story. No. I got teased by Mrs. Griffin.
New story? New people?
Every book is a completely different person, and it's not necessarily the same type of witch story.
Same
or group
world,
of witches.
Different everything.
Not even same world.
What?
Yeah.
They're not technically like the same universe?
They're not. Because the first one talks about seasonal witches, and this one talks about lunar cycle, so a star witch. Or no, it's not star. It's
Well, hello
there. There's like an emotions witch.
ASMR, cat who hates being touched is visiting me.
She's gonna purr so loud in that mic.
Hello.
There's like witches that can control your emotions.
Oh.
God, so cute. And then there's ones that can control animals. Technically, it's more of like broadcast emotions to them and get them to understand your meaning, kind of thing.
You've been blessed by the cat.
There is a third one already.
But you also read something else. Do you want to do a little mention of somebody we know's book?
Oh yes, I read The Glass Palace by Miss
Catherine Tratner.
Yeah. I couldn't. Freaking amazing. And my sister pointed out that the slow burn is, because my brain didn't know the word for it. It was the slow burn of like the romance buildup in her book is absolutely freaking insane. The way that woman writes blew my mind.
Good.
It was so good.
You should read the other one, The Scent of Leaves. I think you'd really like it.
Okay, but like I messaged her too because I was a little mad at her because I was like, "Where's the rest of it?
Where's the sequel?" Man?
We talked about
it. Definitely could have been longer, but
like I need it more like romancy and not necessarily like blah, 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 but more like, oh, I love you, hold my hand, walk in the sunset with me. Like
she bases a lot of her stuff off of like fairy tales and things.
Yeah.
She's a really good writer. Like they're some of them are kind of trippy. Like she really sets the scene and it's very immersive. Like
it really drew. I fed the book in a day.
Right.
I literally couldn't set it down.
I can't think of higher praise than finishing a book within 24 hours.
Well, and it wasn't even necessarily 24 hours. It was literally like 4 hours I spent reading that book.
That's crazy.
And I literally like locked myself in my room in my Papasan chair reading it.
You just went back to like 5th grade where you're suddenly a super reader.
Yeah.
Like Harry Potter just came out. I just read it in 24 hours. I'm going to reread it.
7 more times. But I honestly, like, you had been, like, telling me to read that book and been trying to give it to me for so long. And I was like, yeah, but, like, if someone you know wrote it, I was so unsure about reading it. And then I read it, and I'm like, give me more.
Yeah.
I demand.
For those not in the know, you should give your rating of what you would rate the book. like out of 10 or so. But her book reminds
like a 9.
Nice.
It's not quite a 10 because I do wish there was more, but
we're biased. We like really long books.
I do.
Like, if you want like an airplane book,
yeah,
for like a
if you're going
10-hour flight or whatever,
like if you're going from like one side of the state to another side of the state, and you can read fast,
the country.
Yes.
If you go from
I meant from like one state to another state. My bad, because I was thinking like Cali to like New York or something.
Yeah, across the country.
I just didn't finish the sentence.
But she did, like, no hate, because there are quadrillions of ACOTAR fans out there. But she wrote her book first. Not Sarah J. Maas. Catherine wrote her book first. And I had just read the first Sarah J. Maas book, and I was like, whoa, this is actually really similar. And then I told her, like, it was really good. Two of your books have reminded me of Sarah J. Maas. And she was like, oh, I actually wrote mine first. And I was like, oh, what? She stole your idea? No, just kidding.
It probably just happened to be
they both based it off the same fairy tale.
Yeah.
So, like, Tamlin, like, that's the name of the guy in, like, both of the books. It's like Tamlin. It's the Ballad of Tamlin. It's a fairy tale. So, anyways, no one has stolen anything, I promise.
It just is based off of the same story.
Shameless friend plug.
Yeah, I loved it.
Good.
Although I was like, is he a tiger or not?
Right.
Spoilers. Or
he's a cat man.
Like, they really had me hating the like antagonist lady. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of it, they kind of broke my heart, because I was like, what do you mean? Like, she wasn't supposed to be that bad.
Oh yeah, because it's kind of like Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Right? I was saying it's like a slow burn of Beauty and the Beast, but like slightly more sexual.
It reminds me, have you watched the French Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah, I love
it. It reminds me of that one. Yeah. And I love that
There's
one.
A lot of tension.
Yeah.
There's some fear. There's some attraction.
Haven't watched the French Beauty and the Beast, you're missing out. I'm gonna need you to watch it.
Lay gorgeous.
Literally, like...
Now ask me what I've been reading.
You
already know.
Pond that they get. Oh my god, it's amazing. Okay,
yeah, it's really good.
So what have you been reading that I'm fixing to join you in after I finish this series?
I've been reading with my husband. We've been reading the third Aragon book.
Aragon.
We got all the way through to the third one.
You're on the third already?
Yeah, we finished Eldest a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
And we're
watching.
We're not watching it. Watching my husband read it, and he's watching me read it out loud. Pro tip for your relationship: read every night. It's really fun.
Then you can laugh together.
Is it Inheritance? Is that the third one? No,
Aragon, Brushlinger.
Oh, Brissinger. We're in Brissinger.
Yeah.
Inheritance is the next one.
Yeah.
It's a cycle. And we're doing something really fun. I highly recommend it. We're reading it in silly accents. So Aragon sounds like this. Sophia. Oh no. And Bram sounds like a crazy old man. And even though he's dead, R.I.P.
R.I.P.
But we have a running joke that every time Aragon makes a dumb mistake, Bram weeps. And my husband wants to make t-shirts that say, and Bram wept. And then go to meet Christopher Palomini and be like, check out my shirt.
Please sign.
Sick.
I need. So for my lovely partner, for my birthday, bought me a signed edition of Aragon.
Fancy.
And I literally have it like in a plastic bag on my shelf.
Of course.
And I'm so anxious to open it, to read it, because it's signed. And I'm like, I know I'm going to take it everywhere with me working on reading it. And I'm so afraid of ruining it because it's signed. I'm like, I need another copy that's not good.
Shrink wrapped. But they, to be real, is he the most fabulous writer ever? No.
He wrote it when he was young.
But he was a kid, and it's a nostalgia thing for me. And it's a really great world. Husband has said repeatedly, put the thesaurus down, because there's a lot of big words that are probably unnecessary. He
probably was like vocabulary school.
Yeah, I think the editing process involved like, hey, you've used that word too many times, let's change it to a similar word. And it's like, no, it was okay to use that word again, it's fine. Thanks for the vocabulary lesson, I guess. Anyways, we've been reading that, and on my own, because I'm a freak, I've been listening to the audiobook of Pan's Labyrinth, the Guillermo del Toro version that he wrote with, did you know,
No, I don't know.
Cornelia Funk.
My girl?
Yeah, Inkheart. Dragon Rider, she wrote it with him. I had no idea. No wonder I love that movie so much.
I can't tell you how addicted to Inkheart I am, and how mad that I'm mad that the series that I had got soaking wet and moldy and ruined.
Sad.
I miss my books. Someone send me my books.
We must repurchase them.
I have to wait till I have money in this economy.
Oh yeah, and I was gonna, something you said earlier. One of the things I think we should talk about is like random abilities that people have, like a joke about Twilight. I'll bring it up later. But yes, I've also been trying to finish reading a really old book that I have that's about the life of Mary Queen of Scots.
Ooh.
I read Catherine the Great, and I read the Jane Austen.
I like me some Queenie books.
Me too. That little nostalgia diaries from like.
I have a couple different ones that are like teen angst ones.
Not like Diary of an American Girl, but like similar.
I feel like they're more like emotionally in depth ones that I have.
Yeah, like a fake diary, like Eleanor of Eleanor of Aquitaine, and
mine's something palace or Queen in the Palace or something. I can't remember what it's called.
I got halfway through that one, and by the way, I love that author. She's so cool. She's written a lot of the like comprehensive, very human, like, what's the word? Not documentary. Like the life of this person. Like, we're trying to biography to like chronicle their entire life as like accurately as possible and try to guess at their thoughts and feelings and stuff like that. And I think that's really cool because I like me some context. I like to know what was going on, and she finds like letters of like people who wrote about what they were like or what they looked like and all that stuff. It's really fun. I like me some pictures at the back of the book.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a bunch of portraits.
I love me a good map at the beginning of the book.
Ooh, a map. Well, anyways, check those books out.
Ooh. Another one is an amazing author called Libba Bray. Mm-hmm. And she is probably like one of my top favorite authors.
Cool.
Like her writing style can make you feel dumb but smart at the same time. Because you'll read something and you'll like not comprehend it, and then you'll read the next sentence and you're like, oh my god, I'm so smart, I know exactly what she's talking about, because you finally realize what the previous sentence was about.
So you got like Pride and Prejudice.
You basically, yeah. Or like
I will not reveal like how long it took me to understand what 4 and 20 meant.
Or like Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
The gibberish.
Is bro even talking?
Like, it's a really good, like, powerful, what's that word that we said? It's suspense. Like, suspenseful book. But half the time I'm like, what?
I just made up what I thought he was saying in my head.
Especially the groundskeeper.
I'm like,
his accent.
In my,
I had to say it out loud in order to understand what he was saying.
Half the time when I did a book report on it, and whenever we were doing it in class, I would just like, in my head, I would make up what I thought he was saying, which is always like came out in like this most like redneck accent in my head.
He was gross. Like, if you reread it, he said some really nasty stuff.
Well, and that's kind of what my brain interpreted some of it as. And he's like, well, that bitch had a nice ass. Like,
yeah, it was bad. He was nasty. We don't want to dive too far into books. We're out of time. But I hope you do some reading, and I hope you're a little bit less bored than you were when you pressed the play button.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed random animal ASMR.
Yeah, this whole situation is going to be a learning experience for us, because we're doing it on our spare time.
Yes.
After I get off work, and maybe after she gets off work. So, yes. And currently we're dealing with 2 cats with the zoomies and a dog who is pouting in his sleep.
And some cupcakes that are waiting.
And so there's cupcakes waiting on us to ice them, which I'm very excited about, and I'm probably going to eat one, even though it's like 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah, well, join us next time. We're going to try to release like once a month. And
I think next one we should totally talk about books.
yeah, whatever comes to us.
Yeah.
I think
I feel like it'd be fun to do like a deep dive on random books.
Yeah. So I wonder.
And we can kind of like play off memory instead of like.
Yeah, this episode was a research deep dive, and those are probably going to be like far between occasional because I have to sit down and watch 10-hour documentaries.
Yeah.
Which I already have, but I also am going to refresh my memory before I talk to you about them because that's not fair.
Because we need like bulletin
give you false information or if I remembered it wrong. So yeah, we hope you had fun. We hope you're less bored, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.